At this point in the day, I kind of know I'm preaching to the choir here, I think, when it comes to company culture. So I'm going to try something different with my introduction. Who here thinks they're employable? Raise your hand if you think you're really employable. Raise your hand if you think you're not employable. Robert said something in that last presentation. He mentioned that he's unemployable, basically. I said, oh, dang, that's part of what I'm going to talk about, I think. So I'm going to see if by the end of this presentation I can get you thinking just a little bit about who you are employable by, what type of company you want to work for, and what kind of company you don't want to work for. So here's my opening question for you all. If I offered right now to give you $1 million today, but in return you had to work for the next 10 years of your life for a toxic company, work for just in a job that you hated, with people you didn't like, for a purpose you didn't believe in, would you take it? Okay. Now wait, don't speak for everybody here, okay? But I want you to think about it. And then before you answer that, I want to introduce you to just a few people, okay? As you consider whether or not you take me up on my offer, okay? These are a few of the people you'd get to work with, all right? I want to introduce you to Kim, your very abrasive boss that you'd have for the next 10 years, all right? Kim has completely unrealistic expectations, no empathy whatsoever, doesn't care about you, micromanages even her micromanagers, okay? She seldom smiles. Every email she sends has a lot of capital letters in it, okay? Abrasive communicator, and is extremely emotionally hot and cold, unpredictable. You never know what kind of mood she's going to be in, okay? This will be your boss. I want to introduce you to your flaky coworker, Rob, all right? You're going to get to work, in fact, you're going to get to share a desk station for 10 years with Rob, okay? Rob comes in late all the time. He's distracted, disruptive, in general, very seldom focused on what he's actually supposed to be doing, never takes responsibility, is a contrarian about everything, never just gets on board and does what he's asked to do, and is always complaining. So you get to hang out with Rob every day for the next 10 years. And lastly, I want you to meet Dev. Dev's going to be your absent CEO of this company. His grandfather started the company. He's got a big ego, thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, or likes people to think that at least. He's often unavailable. He spends much more time traveling, jet setting, doing things that feed his ego than being present in his own company. Never wants to be around or make a hard decision. But when things don't go right, he blames everybody else. And lastly, when he does show up in the office, you realize he doesn't hardly know one person that works for his company. Now, that may not be exactly the idea that you have in mind when I say $1 million offer, work for a toxic company for the next 10 years. But I actually want to invite you guys to answer a similar question. And if you could get out your phones, I have just a simple Mentimeter poll that I'm going to ask you a follow-up question here in just a moment. So I'm going to give you, 5 or 10 minutes to get this. And if you don't know how these work, guys, if you can't make the QR code work, if you're on the edge of the room, you can also go to menti.com, which is menti.com, and you can just type in that 7-digit code, which will also be on the top of the next slide. Okay. But here's the question that you're going to be asked to answer, is this: how much additional money would you need to be paid each and every year to work in a toxic place? And I want your real answer here, okay? Nobody's going to see your results. If you say, Brett, I'd do that for $500, that's fine, okay? That's fine. I want your real answer. Think about it. You can change your vote if you want to, okay? The categories here in front of you are less than $1,000 a year, somewhere between $1,000 and $10,000 a year, $10,000 to $50,000. Okay, that's real like job change category for most people. You're thinking, okay, that's enough money to make you really jump from one significant job to another. $50,000 to $250,000. Maybe there are some folks in this room that wouldn't take $250,000 or more every single year to work in a toxic workplace culture. And then on the end, there's a category that essentially says, I'm unemployable by that kind of company. Okay? I wouldn't do it for any amount of money. Now, what I've got on the screen right now is a screenshot of this poll. I'm not going to let you see the results of that till the end, all right? And we'll see what things look like if our technology cooperates. Okay? But I do want to talk about one of the same themes that you've heard many times today, which is business. I get to run a company called Better Culture. I get to work with organizations that want to be better places to work. And every organization I've ever worked with, undeniably, they would say this is their goal. They want to have a successful business. Now, you can define that in a lot of different ways. For-profit, non-profit, government agency, whatever that may look like. Each and every one of you in your own businesses would have a slightly different definition of what success looks like. But I'm going to wager that the path to getting to that success will look something like what I'm about to put on the screen, okay? I'm going to work backwards from business success, and we're going to have at the end of this a nice, what we call leadership loop to how we get there. But in almost every industry, if you want to operate a successful business, you can't do it without having a good reputation, a solid reputation with customers, in your industry, stakeholders, whatever that looks like. And good luck having a good reputation if you can't create some, as Ken Blanchard calls them, raving fans along the way. People that say, man, do I love working with this company. And here's why, okay? If you want to create raving fans, as I continue to work backwards, you can only do that if you can produce high-quality products and services. If whatever you exist to deliver, you do it with excellence. You do it with a certain level of quality that those customers appreciate and come to respect and want to come back for. Well, what does it take in any business to deliver consistently high-quality products and services? Good people. Quality staff, right? And I don't care the industry. This could be a manufacturing plant. This could be a cattle operation. This could be anything in the world, okay? If you want to consistently deliver high-quality products and services, you've got to have great people. This is why darn near every Fortune 500 CEO down to an entrepreneurial startup will say people are their most valuable resource. And they usually mean it, okay? Because we all know it's tough to run a great business without great people. And in my opinion, the most powerful force that there is in the long term to help businesses attract and build and motivate and keep great people, you think it's money? I think it's culture. I think it's culture. Now, you can try to use money to hire people, to recruit people, and in the short term, that's probably the best short-term motivator. But in the long term, culture is the thing that helps an organization or a team attract and build and motivate and keep great people. Okay? And this is what we call our leadership loop. And yes, lots of people can contribute to what that culture of an organization looks like, but leaders have an outsized influence, which is why we call this the leadership loop. And in any team or organization, if where you want to get is business success, I think that path starts with culture, okay? Because it's culture that will allow you to attract and build and motivate and keep great people who will deliver high-quality products and services that will make you happy, satisfied customers, and ultimately deliver that successful business that we all want. So with this session this afternoon, I'm going to dive deeper and talk about the value of culture that's right at the heart of that loop. And I'm going to make the case today that there are really four, you could slice and dice this a few other ways, but I'm going to talk about four major stakeholder groups that benefit from the value of culture. When you run a company culture, a leadership training, a company culture business like I do, I find myself regularly in conversations with people asking about the ROI. What's the ROI of investing in our culture? I love those conversations. I love those conversations because I get to ask them, well, what do you care about? And if they say the bottom line, great, I talk about that. If they say impact, we talk about that. If they say they're people, we talk about that because culture has value to all of those groups. And today I'm going to really try to make an assertive case about why it has such value to each of those groups. So let's take the first one, which is just dollars and cents. We've seen several great statistics on this today. I'm just going to add to that, and I'm not going to spend too much time trying to convince you all of this because I know the folks in this room believe that culture, that employee experience has value when it comes to the bottom line. But here's from a few pretty reputable sources. McKinsey has published data that says employee engagement costs a typical, think big business here, S&P 500 company, between $228 million and $355 million per year in lost productivity. Per year. okay? That's the value that they're losing if they don't have a healthy culture. Actual dollars and cents. Harvard Business Review says if you've got happy and engaged employees, that they're 31% more productive than disengaged employees. Does 31% production increase sound good? If it sounds valuable, then culture has value. Deloitte, in partnership with the University of North Carolina, has documented that highly engaged employees drive over 2 times the revenue growth. So if you'd like your company to be growing at 10% per year, or if it is currently, if you had really engaged employees, it'd be growing at 20% per year. You don't think that compounds like crazy? And lastly, Gallup. If you want to look at actual just pure profitability, teams that are in the top quartile, the top 25% of employee engagement, are 23% more profitable than those in the bottom quartile, okay? So lots of data out there. I know you've heard a lot of that today, so I'm going to move on there. The second group of stakeholders, aside from just business owners that I want to talk about, is customers. What's the value of a great company culture to your customers? Well, I'll be brief on this one as well, but I'm guessing some of you in the room, maybe most of you in the room, have heard of a Net Promoter Score. You know what that is. Many companies that want to keep a finger on how satisfied their customer satisfaction is, they've decided that asking this one relatively simple question of essentially, would you recommend this company to your friends, etc. What research shows is that covers about 20 to 40% of how customers feel about the whole customer service experience, about a brand, about a company. And that's a fair amount. So you ask that one question and you learn a lot. Why do so many companies care about customer satisfaction? Should be self-evident, but the data is clear that customer satisfaction is a leading indicator on business profitability. Just like we talked about in that leadership loop. If we can focus on, are our customers happy, there's a huge positive correlation with whether or not we're going to be making more money. So that's why they're so focused there. But here's a metric that people don't know as much about. There are lots of ways to measure the health of a culture, okay? We personally don't use the Employee Net Promoter Score, but I find this data very interesting. Did you know there's quite a bit of data that shows if you ask about a company, would you recommend this as a great place to work to your colleagues and peers? That data is a leading indicator on regular Net Promoter Score, customer satisfaction, okay? So if you want to focus on satisfied customers, create satisfied employees, right? And again, this is all shown in that early loop that I showed you. But if you care about satisfied customers, create satisfied employees. Therefore, culture has value to your customers, right? Third one, this conference is heavy on this, so I'm just going to show you one statistic and slide. But I think workplace culture, employee engagement, clearly has value to society, to community. One statistic that I have seen and that I like to share is that when employees feel empowered and engaged, they personally are more likely to support community initiatives, and they are more likely to expect their company to do the same. So healthy cultures create community impact, and they insist that their organizations do the same. So once again, focusing on people and culture as a byproduct is going to create impact in your community, in your industry, etc. And here's the last one that I'm going to spend a little extra time on. This is where I spend my time every day. And I think it's too overlooked. And it's one of the reasons that I love what this movement does. And every time I hear Jay Wilkinson speak, and he talks about those 3 core pillars of this Do More Good movement, and one of them is culture. And that's why I got excited to come talk today, is about not just the value of culture to the business owners and to the community and to your customers, but to your employees themselves. What's the value of working at a great company? What's the value to your employees? Okay? When I started my professional career, I was a math person. I like math, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with my career, And when you're that kind of a person, the guidance counselor says, have you ever tried engineering? No. But I decided, sure, I'll take their advice, and ended up going to school for engineering. What kind of engineering? I don't know. What kinds are there, right? So happened that at the University of Kansas, the Department of Civil Engineering was offering a special scholarship. I said, well, I guess I'll take that one, So I went to school to be an engineer. And it won't be terribly surprising that as I got close to the end of that degree and I started looking at internships and looking at what that career was going to look like for me, I didn't love it. I didn't really have clarity on what I was going to do with my life. And I took a job as an engineer for a few years, but I didn't love it. And I thought I might get into something else that was numbers oriented, maybe finance or insurance or something like that. But I couldn't find an opportunity that felt right to me. And I was sort of going through this, early 20s career crisis. And a mentor sat down with me and sort of listened to my story about, I just don't know what I want to do. I don't think this is right, etc. And she asked me a question that I never will forget. She said, Brett, do you think maybe you're focusing too much on what you want to do and not enough on what kind of company you want to work for? I said, I'd never thought about it. And she said, oh, well, at my company, we focus on being a great place to work. And we have all kinds of people that work there with all kinds of backgrounds and degrees, and they all love it. I said, tell me more, right? And it was at that moment that I took a job for an amazing company that was a perennial best place to work. And I would never look back. And I talked early on about how I might want to encourage some of you to think about how employable are you. It was after a few months there that I'm probably unemployable to an organization that doesn't have a great culture. I wouldn't do it, personally, okay? It's not worth it to me. So let's talk a little bit about what those benefits are to employees of working for a great organization, all right? And I've got data on all this stuff, but just take it for granted, all right? For the moment. If you personally work for a company that you just love being a part of, that you appreciate the people, your management, the purpose, all of the things, it's a healthy company culture, you'll have just a better quality of life. At work and at home. You'll be likely to have better physical health. Wonderful data there from the Mayo Clinic about physical health determinants when people work in good companies or good cultures or not. Mental health will be improved, relationships, a sense of belonging, your overall mood, not just at work, but in home and in life. Your sense of motivation, creativity, how much you're growing and developing. Your sense of work-life harmony. Okay? Your satisfaction with your family and their satisfaction with you. Your sense of purpose and fulfillment. All of these things are positively correlated with working for a great company. I don't care what industry you're in. Work for a great employer, okay? And become unemployable to anybody else. So let's see what you guys said early on. See what my data looks like. Oh, those bar charts. Oh, on my screen, they're not very big. It looks better up there. I guess I really was preaching to the choir here. I didn't expect that extreme of a response from you guys. But when I ask how much would you need to be paid each year to work in a toxic culture, this group, holy smokes, about 70% of you are unemployable to that type of a company. That's wild. What I think is so amazing is, did you know about 70% of the current American workforce is disengaged? They're not happy with their jobs. Apparently those people couldn't get work off to come here. Right? But that needs to change. Not just, you guys can skip that, not just for business profitability, not just for the fact that it's better for customers, not just because it's better for the community, but because it's better for us. It's better for your employees. There's tremendous quality of life that happens if we'll invest in our culture and build the type of place that people love to work. Back to that loop that I started with, all of that impact, okay, in all four of those areas, all of that value, in my opinion, can start with culture. So think about where you work and where you show up and figure out what you can do to make your place of work more fulfilling and a better place to work. Thank you very much.